Hey everybody, my name is Mike Montgomery.
I'm Prescott McCarthy.
And today we are going to be building a rustic concrete bathroom vanity on modern builds.
Nice.
Today's episode is taking place in Landers, California at my buddy Prescott McCarthy's workshop, who's in the middle of building a very cool Airbnb you can find the link to in the description. We're going to be making a custom earth-formed concrete and reclaimed lumber vanity for the bathroom. So let's get started. Prescott had this perfectly weathered old glulam beam that had been sitting out in the desert for who knows how long, and we decided to cut that down into some manageable chunks for our base. Of course, we started by cleaning the beams and then cutting them to size with the circular saw, making sure not to hit any metal that we could see. And then we had a handsaw duel to see which was best, my Harbor Freight Japanese pull saw or Prescott's vintage Western crosscut saw. And, I guess I gotta give it to him. He beat me fair and square. What can I say? I'll take the L. And I have to say, that is a very solid touchdown dance. Good job, Mr. McCarthy.
Super fruit.
Moving on. Overall, the beam held together pretty well, but there were just a couple of those 2x4s that came loose, so we used some timber lock screws to cinch those back into place. We did our best to be careful with this wood, always pre-drilling before we sank any screws, and we just took the time to clean up any of the brackets or metal that we could see to make it as nice as possible. Then our puppy supervisor checked in on our work, and we got the cosign to move on. The only real challenge in making this base was making sure that the top sat level to the earth. The back of the beam we're using is about 2 inches thinner than the face of the beam, meaning we had to cut the legs at an angle so that that top piece could rest flat. And with that, we can move on to our earth-formed concrete counter. We started by soaking the area that we were gonna dig out with water, that way it was just easier. I was pretty surprised to find that after letting that water soak for about 5 minutes, it only penetrated about an inch or two into the sand. So we just did this in layers, and we were patient because digging out this earth was really difficult without wetting it down first. A flathead shovel was my tool of choice to dig out the majority of the material we needed to remove, and Prescott came back with a drywall knife to finesse all of our edges. The whole point to this project is getting a unique hand-carved look, but we want to do it carefully. We thought about it for a while, and I really think a drywall knife is the best tool for this job, but if you have other ideas, leave a comment down below. This project is all about the natural inconsistencies in both the wood and the edge that we're gonna get out of this concrete. We did our best to make everything square and to get as smooth of a finish as possible, but just know we're not going for perfect. After we got our dirt hole as level as we could get it, it was time to put the melamine down. That way we could get what we hoped to be a really flat and smooth top.
Oh no! That's the opposite of what we wanted.
1-800-SUPER-PRO.
Super no.
So as you can tell, things don't always work out as planned, but we are not here to complain. We're pressing on and we're making the best of this situation. We got the broken melamine as flat as possible, and then we put the negative for the sink bowl and drain in the mold. This is just a reclaimed metal lampshade, and it worked perfect. Not to spoil anything. We used a few dabs of Loctite Power Grab to attach everything, and then ran a bead of silicone caulk to make sure everything was watertight. And now it's concrete time, the moment we've all been waiting for. I think I mixed up 4 60-pound bags of normal Quikrete, and it was perfect. Just mix it up to an oatmeal or lumpy peanut butter consistency, and you're right where you want to be. If anything, I think leaning towards a slightly wetter mix in this application would be better, considering that the walls of our form are going to act as a wick, rather than melamine, which would hold that moisture in longer. We were totally winging this process, but of course we did our best. Once our mold was halfway full, we vibrated everything to get as many air bubbles out while it was still accessible, and then laid down a grid of 3/4 inch rebar reinforcement. And instead of filling the rest of the mold up exclusively with concrete, we also used some wood blocks to take up some of that volume and reduce the weight overall. That way 2 people could actually carry it.
So it's been 48 hours and it is time to dig this sink out.
I think this day was the closest I've come to actualizing my childhood dreams of being a Jurassic Park paleontologist. It was a whole lot of fun. Digging out this mold and revealing this edge texture was what this project was all about, and it did not disappoint. Rather than everything being perfectly flat, we had small indentions and small raised portions of the concrete that was really unique. It almost looks like an edge of a cliff or a giant stone just snapped in half. So I know everyone's gonna ask, how much did this weigh? Well, it took a little less than 4 60-pound bags of Quikrete, and this still had a lot of moisture in it. So if math serves me correct, I have to imagine it's around 250 pounds, which was definitely the upper threshold of what me and Prescott wanted to carry ourselves. I was definitely glad that we put those wooden blocks in the concrete. It was really encouraging seeing that the concrete met all 3 facing edges of our base perfectly, and allowed for about a 6 or 8 inch gap between the base and the wall. If our melamine didn't break, we probably wouldn't have needed to sand down the top, but we took care of that, as well as any unnecessarily rough corners with an angle grinder. And lastly, while the vanity was on the base, we marked the location of where the drain is gonna need to go through the top of the base. We drilled out a pilot hole with an auger bit, and then used that to basically make a mortise with an electric chainsaw, which, I mean, technically worked. It's all getting covered up anyways, right?
Well, that's one way to do it.
And right now, I'd like to give a big thanks to the sponsor of today's episode, Squarespace. You know them, you love them. Squarespace is your one-stop shop to design and build a custom website, and the best part is you need 0 website building experience. I'm serious. If you can drag and drop files and edit text blocks, you are well on your way to a custom, one-of-a-kind website. And if you don't believe me, check out the link in my description to my previous upload where I built a whole tutorial all about building a Squarespace online store. Whether you're an artist that needs a portfolio, a business that needs a website, or you're interested in selling products online, Squarespace has the tools and the templates built specifically for what you want to achieve. So if you're interested, make sure and follow the link down in the description. That's squarespace.com/modernbuilds, where you can build out an entire Squarespace website before entering any of your credit card info. And then when it's time to make your site live, make sure and use the code modernbuilds for 10% off your first site, store, or domain. One more huge thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. Now back to the build. From there, it was time to assemble the vanity on location in the Airbnb that Prescott and Aaron are building. And of course, Elliot came along. This dog is so cute. I know I mentioned it before, but if you want to find the links to Janakoya, which is the Airbnb that we're building this at, links are down in the description. I love the juxtaposition of the rustic exterior and the super smooth plaster finish on the inside of this house. It almost reminds me of a workshop of somebody I know about on YouTube. The 3 pieces for the base basically plop together, and we used the same timber lock screws as earlier to secure everything down. Then after making sure that everything was as square and level as possible, we brought that heavy concrete vanity onto the base.
Okay. Yeah. Oh. I'm glad it landed on me though. That saved the expensive lens. That's great. Alright, 3, 2, 1. Boom.
You already know what I'm gonna say. I love this project. It's so out of the box of what I typically build, and it's the perfect example of why you should collaborate with other people who are creative. I think what we built together is cooler than what either of us would have built individually, and we had a lot of fun making something so unique. The reclaimed beam base really speaks for itself. The shape is fine, but the material is really what is so cool about it. And don't even get me started on the live rustic concrete edge. We've got to come up with a name for this. That natural, completely random texture that earth-formed concrete gives you has me really excited to do more experiments like this. All in all, just stay tuned, because I think we've got more projects like this coming to Modern Builds.
So y'all already know the deal. Click like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to keep up with me in between videos, you can find me at Modern Builds on Instagram. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.